buy a place, you furnish it. Strangers pay you to sleep in it. For about a decade, that was the whole business. Then the math moved. In January 2026, the average American short-term rental sold fewer than half its nights. Occupancy came in at 48.4%, and the number of listings fighting over those nights climbed to 1.68 million. So here's the strange part. Most of the people starting profitable Airbnb businesses this year aren't buying property at all. They're getting paid to run the properties somebody else already bought. There are 3 doors into this business. They look similar from the outside. They are not the same business. Door 1, you own it. You buy the house, you furnish it, you take every dollar the calendar produces. You also take the mortgage. Door 2, you lease it. You rent a place long-term from a landlord, get written permission to sublet it nightly, and keep the spread. The industry calls this arbitrage. Hold on to that word, door 3. You run someone else's. You never touch the deed or the lease. You manage the listing, pricing, guests, cleaners, reviews, and you take a cut of what it earns. Airbnb calls this co-hosting. Here's a detail that surprises most people. Airbnb has over 8 million active listings and more than 5 million hosts. And roughly 90% of those hosts are individuals, not companies. This is not an industry of corporations. It's an industry of people with 1 or 2 units and a phone. And here's the stranger detail underneath that one. Over 60% of American hosts say they're renting out the home they actually live in while they're away on vacation. Not an investment property. Their own bedroom, monetized 4 weeks a year. That's who you're competing with. Which means the competition you're walking into is mostly amateur. That's the good news. The bad news is the thing all 3 doors have in common. Every one of them makes money the same way. A guest pays for a night. The only thing that actually changes between them is what happens on the nights nobody books. That difference is the entire video, because there's one door where an empty February costs you almost nothing. We'll get there. Let's price out door 1 buying because that's the version in your head. Start small. The furniture. Furnishing a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom runs somewhere between $8,000 and $30,000, depending on quality and size. That single line item is usually 60 to 80% of a launch budget. And it's not furniture the way you buy furniture for yourself. It's a bed frame that has to survive 400 strangers. It's a sofa that gets sat on by people who will never see it again. Most new hosts underestimate it, not by a little. Go up a rung. The capital. Freddie Mac's survey put the 30-year fixed rate at 6.37% in May 2026, and investment property loans price roughly a full point above that. Investment loans in 2026 typically want 25% down. Run it on a $350,000 house. 20% down is $70,000. At 25, it's $87,500. That's before furniture, before the smart lock, before a single towel, add furnishing and setup, and the honest all-in number to open door 1 lands somewhere between $85,000 and $130,000 in cash. Door 2 leasing is a different order of magnitude. First month, deposit, furnishing, a small reserve. Operators who do this well launch a first unit for roughly $7,000 to $12,000. Same business, same guest, 10 times the difference in what it costs to start. But there's a third cost, and it's the one almost nobody budgets for correctly. The rung nobody sees. The rulebook. On January 1st, 2026, California's SB 346 took effect. It compels Airbnb, Vrbo, and the rest to hand host data names, addresses, nights booked directly to local governments that ask for it. Los Angeles and San Francisco are already using it to find and remove non-compliant listings at scale. And those cities already had teeth. Los Angeles caps unhosted rentals at 120 nights a year. San Francisco caps them at 90. New York City's Local Law 18 has reportedly produced more than $72 million in fines. Now here's the part that makes this genuinely hard to plan around. It doesn't only move one direction. On July 1st, 2026, 2 state laws took effect going the opposite way. Idaho's House Bill 583 reclassified short-term rentals as ordinary residential use, which strips cities of the power to require owner occupancy or cap density. Indiana's HEA 1210 did something similar, barring local governments from capping how many homes can be rented. So one state hands cities a scalpel. The next state takes it away. You are not buying a property. You are buying a position in somebody's next city council vote. And in November 2025, one company found out exactly how fast that bill can come due. Hold that. Forget the market for a second. Picture one building, same city, same street, 2 identical 2-bedroom units, side by side. both grossing about $40,000 a year on Airbnb, a completely ordinary number. Unit A is owned by the person operating it. Unit B is owned by a dentist who lives 4 states away and hasn't seen it since closing. Someone else runs it for him. Now run the year Unit A. $40,000 comes in. Out goes the mortgage, property tax, insurance, utilities, internet, cleaning, supplies, software, platform fees, and the slow burn of furnishing roughly 8 to 12% of that furniture budget is destroyed by guests in year 1 alone. On a decent deal in a decent market, the owner clears something in the neighborhood of $8,000. $8,000 against about $85,000 of cash in the ground and 30 years of debt. Unit B. The person running it charges a management commission. In 2026, co-hosts typically take 15 to 25% of gross booking revenue, with 20% the most common full-service rate. 20% of $40,000 is $8,000. Same $8,000. One of those people spent $85,000 and signed a 30-year mortgage to earn it. The other spent a laptop and their weekends. Read that again. Now watch what happens when each one tries to grow. The owner scales by buying another house, another down payment, another $85,000, another closing, another furnishing budget, another mortgage that has to be fed, whether the calendar fills or not. The manager scales by signing another dentist. 10 properties at 20% of $3,000 a month is $6,000 a month, and the capital required to reach 10 properties is, functionally, zero. Not low, zero. And when February is dead, and February is always dead, the owner still gets a mortgage statement. The manager just gets a quieter phone. That's the paradox, and that's why it holds. In this business, ownership doesn't buy you the profit, it buys you the risk. The profit is available separately, and it's cheaper. So the answer's obvious. Don't own the asset. Get the revenue without the asset. That settles it, right? Well, not quite. Because there is a version of not owning that is arguably more dangerous than owning. Go back to door 2. Arbitrage. Lease it long, rent it short, keep the spread. A company called Sonder ran that model harder than anyone in history. Founded in 2014, designed forward apartments with hotel-grade consistency. It went public at a valuation of $2.2 billion. At its peak, it operated around 9,000 units across more than 40 cities. In 2024, it signed a licensing deal with Marriott that put its inventory on Bonvoy, the distribution deal that was supposed to be the finish line. November 7th, 2025, Marriott sends notice. November 9th, Marriott announces the agreement is terminated, citing default. November 10th, Sonder announces it is winding down operations immediately. November 14th, Chapter 7, Liquidation, filed in Delaware. 7 days. Guests, people mid-stay, people who'd booked months earlier were told to leave, some with less than 24 hours notice. One family in Boston came back to find their belongings in garbage bags in the hallway. Now the important question. Why? Not because nobody wanted the rooms. Demand for short-term rentals in 2025 was fine. Sonder died of something more specific. It had signed fixed, long-term lease obligations and funded them with volatile, nightly revenue. The lease payment doesn't know it's February. It doesn't know there's a recession, or a bad week, or a distribution partner walking away. It arrives at the same size every month regardless. That's not a hospitality risk. That's a leverage risk. And Sonder wasn't an outlier, it was the loudest example. By one industry count, at least 8 venture-funded operators have now run this same experiment. Stay Alfred, Lyric, Zeus Living, Front Desk, Domio, and others. Every one of them failed, or is failing. 8 attempts, hundreds of millions of dollars, same ending. At that point, it stops being bad luck and starts being arithmetic. So here's the sharpened version of the paradox. Don't just avoid owning the asset. Avoid owning the liability. That distinction is the whole game, and you can see it in who survived. Operators like Casa and Avant Stay run management agreements with landlords instead of leases. They share revenue. When bookings drop, their costs drop with them. Casa has taken over management of former Sonder buildings, the same real estate, on a structure that doesn't detonate Airbnb, built the retail version of this. Its co-host network launched in late 2024, and by 2026 it has grown to more than 15,000 vetted co-hosts, managing over 100,000 listings across roughly 12 countries. The wider co-hosting market is reportedly worth around $2.3 billion and growing over 30% a year. That's not a side hustle. That's an industry forming in real time. Now, the break-even math, because this is where you'll feel it. The formula is the same for everyone. Fixed monthly costs divided by profit per booked night equals the nights you must sell to survive. Run it for the owner. Say a fixed nut of $2,800 a month mortgage, insurance, utilities, software, and about $150 of profit per booked night after cleaning and fees. That's roughly 19 nights every month. Before you make a dollar, now look back at that occupancy figure from the hook. Under 50%? In a 30-day month, that's around 14 or 15 nights. That gap 19 needed, 15 delivered is where most first-time Airbnb businesses quietly die. Not in a dramatic collapse. In a slow monthly shortfall, the owner covers out of savings and calls the ramp-up period. Now run the same formula for the co-host. Fixed costs, near zero. No mortgage, no lease, no furniture. Break-even nights, zero. That's the door where an empty February costs you almost nothing. A bad month doesn't cost the co-host money. It just doesn't pay them. There is a ceiling, and you should know it. The co-host constraint isn't capital, it's hours. Every property is guest messages, cleaner scheduling, and a maintenance call at 10 p.m. You beat that ceiling with systems and software, or you hire, or you stall out around 5 to 10 units. That's the real limit, and anyone selling you this without mentioning it is selling you something. So, does starting an Airbnb business in 2026 actually work? Honestly, it depends on a variable most people never check. The optimistic version is real. AirDNA's 2026 mid-year outlook forecasts national occupancy, averaging 57.4%, slightly above the pre-pandemic average of 57.0%, with revenue per available rental up to 0.9%, driven by stronger nightly rates. And here's the quiet gift in that report. New listings are only growing 2.7%, because mortgage rates stayed above 6% and delayed a wave of investment that everyone expected. Fewer new competitors means pricing power for whoever's already operating. In the Smoky Mountains, Gatlinburg absorbed 45% listing growth and revenue per rental held firm around $177 a night. The realistic version is also real. In 12 months, Austin added 2,582 listings, a 32% supply surge, and revenue per available rental compressed to about $131 a night, with occupancy at 45%. Dallas grew faster still. Same country, same year, same platform. One market rewarded operators and one market punished them, and the deed in your hand made no difference to either outcome. And it shows up in what hosts actually take home. Depending on whose dataset you trust, the typical American host grosses somewhere between roughly $14,000 and $44,000 a year. That's an enormous spread. And the honest reason is that there is no such thing as an average host. There's a market, a nightly rate, and a cost structure. Two of those three you can choose. Only one of them you have to carry, which is the thing worth taking away. You've been told this is a real estate business. It isn't. Real estate is just where it happens. It's an operations business wearing a house. And the operators who last aren't the ones who bought the best property. They're the ones who made sure that on the nights nobody books, nothing is owed. If you want the version of this that goes deeper on the collapse itself, how a company with 9,000 units went from a partnership to chapter 7 inches 7 days, that's the one video I'd point you to. Next. And if you like the hidden economics behind the businesses you walk past every day, subscribe. That's the whole channel.